How are we doing today? I want to encourage you all with this kind of thought about routines and routines that we have with kids. Often we talk about, discipling our kids, when we make it much harder than it has to be. And, we think that we need to sit down and read, 4 chapters of Leviticus every night to our kids. And, if you want to do that, that's fine. But I think one of the main things that we can do with our kids in terms of discipling our kids and working with our kids is not make it more complicated than it has to be, but simply getting in routines with kids. Routines, I believe, in my heart, is where they find that stability and they find trust in that routine. I know I get up and I do this, or I know when I go to bed, this happens and then this happens. There's a lot of peace and there's a lot of hope and trust that is built from parents when they do that with their kids. And I think when we're talking about discipling our kids with routine, I think one of the main things we can do is obviously we have a routine of praying and reading. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things to do during family worship time, to not really overthink it, but to give attention to both prayer and reading every night. And it doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be drawn out for a half an hour every night. For example, what I think would be really great is not only to read a passage of scripture and to pray and to talk about the things that they're thankful for throughout the week, but to pick a book and read it, an age appropriate book. And there's tons of great examples out there for Christian parents. It doesn't have to be a lame book. You can read, for instance, a long series over the course of a year. For instance, my family a couple of years ago, we read through C.S. Lewis's the Chronicles of Narnia, and it took an entire year to do it, but we plodded through it, and we read a page to 2 pages every single day, and it took an entire year, and the kids stuck with it, and it became part of our routine, and they looked forward to it, and they kept up with the characters, and it taught a lot about what the Christian life should be through reading a fantasy story like Chronicles of Narnia that has its roots in faith, and it's kind of an allegory of faith. And so let me encourage you to read with your kids every night, to pray with your kids every night. Now, if you're not a parent and you're reading this, or if you're a grandparent and reading this, take this as training for what you can do with the children that are in your life now or will be in your life at some other point. Don't just dismiss this because you don't have kids, because you either will or you have other kids in your life that you may care for on some level. Develop routines with them and develop things that they can depend on and they can look forward to as you teach them about God. And if you aren't a parent yet, if you're a single person or a college student, think about those things that you want to do, those traditions you want to make, and that'll be special to them. And they'll be able to look back when they're adults and go, man, that's how my parents taught me about God. And it was such a comforting and safe place where I learned about Jesus, and we had a good time every night. So think about that with your kids, with your kids to be, or the kids you know in your life. And I think it'll pay off dividends instead of just sitting them in front of a screen or sitting them with an iPad or a phone or just a television. The worst possible thing to do. We're so technically addicted that it's unbelievable. Shut that off and go analog, and read with your kids. Let them hear your voice. Let them hear the laughter. Even let them hear you mess up words every once in a while. That's okay. It's part of the fun of it. So I think that's how we can start to build Christian families, by those traditions and routines, especially at bedtime. So put those into practice, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot. See you later.